Okay, so welcome everybody to our UFO ET Experiencers group. And my name is Catherine Chappie. I'm from Long Island, New York. And we've been having these groups for about 6 years now. And just recently we put them on the Zoom platform, which has been really amazing because now we open it up to a much wider community, which I'm really, really excited about. So tonight we have a beautiful speaker. And I met Jackie, her name is Jackie Haverty, and I met her in another meetup group that was part of the genre of UFO, ET type experiences. And Jackie started coming to our group. And so I've heard her speak before, and I'm sure this will be a really fantastic night. She has a amazing story and wealth of knowledge and information, and I'm just so excited to have her here as our speaker tonight. So I'd like to welcome you, Jackie.
Thanks, Catherine. I really appreciate all the people being here. I honor everyone here, and you're from all over. I'm really surprised to see that. I'm from Canada. I'm living just south of Edmonton, Alberta right now. I was living in Vancouver and different parts of BC. Well, actually, I lived all across Canada. I also lived in the States too at one time. So I really appreciate all of you being here. It's really nice to see you. Some of you I've seen before. Catherine for sure, and Sean, I've seen him before because I've joined a few of your groups. And I just got started in this, I don't know, it was about 8 months ago. I've only done one talk. And it's all from memory because I've had over 30 years of things going on, and well, since I was a child actually. So it's everything I say is from memory. So I think if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, I don't mind, somebody saying, well, what about this? Well, what happened there? Because sometimes that piques my memory a little bit. It triggers it, and I can remember more. I have never written it down, unfortunately. I just never got around to doing that. So,
and I've also question on that one. So, if somebody has a question, do you want them to put the raised hand function up so you can see it, or how would somebody?
Oh, I see.
What you're comfortable with that?
I don't know. How would you like to do it, Catherine? I mean, it doesn't matter to me. If somebody just wants to say, well, I have a question about that, that's okay to me too. That's okay.
Okay.
So, however it works. I mean, not a whole bunch of questions, but one particular area might get me into something else as well. And I have a bunch of things that I've chosen, that I've picked out, that I'll talk about. But they're all kind of skewed. Like some of them were many years ago, some of them were not too long ago, but I've had a lot of experiences in all kinds of ways and all kinds of areas. So, and basically I think this started when the ETs, when I was connected with the ETs many years ago, when I was a child. I think I was around 10 or 11. But before we get into all that, I just want to say that my name is Jackie Haverty. I'm not cheese. I know there's a, what is it, cheese? Haverty or something? Haverty. Anyway.
No. Island accent. We'll blame it on
I have to tell everybody that because everybody mistakes my last name as a Haverty cheese.
Say it again. How do you say it?
Haverty, Haverty.
Haverty, okay.
Yes. So, I started this life, I was born in England just before the end of the Second World War while bombs were still falling. So you can kind of get my age from that. And my mother was English, my father was Canadian. We ended up coming back to Canada after the war ended. My mother was a war bride, so we came back to Canada. I left home at 17. I didn't do well in school. I was kind of I don't know, I used to pass notes and do all kinds of unfortunate things, and I got kicked out of school. So I didn't go back. I decided I was going to leave home. My home life was not the best anyway. And then at 17, I traveled across Canada, just moving and working any job I could get. I had no education, or very little. And I did that for 7 years. I lived all kinds of places in Canada. I have never quit moving, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, I don't know, but that's been part of my path. I think I know why, but I'm not sure positively. Anyway, I ended up marrying an on-the-road musician from South Dakota. And so I ended up down there and had one of my kids in Portland, Oregon, and went to Virginia Beach for a while. So I've been in different parts of the U.S. as well. Finally went back to school in my 40s, late 30s, and received an education after 6 years of going to school and practically starving to death with 2 little kids, because by then I was divorced. And then I moved back to Canada, and I got my first job with BC Child Protection. It was the BC government, British Columbia government, in child protection and adoptions. I loved the adoptions. I didn't like the child protection, but I'll tell you, they put me with the teenagers all the time because I could always tell when something was going on with them. I just had this instinct with kids. I knew when they were being abused or neglected or whatever was happening in the family. I just knew it. So that's why they put me with them. And then I went to adoptions, and I really loved adoptions. But I really became very spiritual. So I quit, and I got married. It only lasted a year, but I got married. And all my spirituality really started coming up. And I think it began with the ET experiences when I was young. And I'll just briefly talk about them. It happened to my parents, my sister and I, my grandsons, my grandkids, and everybody I know, generational in the family. So far, everybody I know, my kids, my grandkids, my sister and I, and my parents. So those are the ones I know. But I remember being, around 10 or 11, and I was really afraid to go to bed at night. My sister and I, we were the same age. We were twins, but we were not identical twins. My identical twin actually was stillborn. She died. But we were afraid to go to bed at night. We'd look under the bed, we'd look in the closet, and, then we'd go to bed and we'd just be really scared, because when we were starting to fall asleep, sometimes we could feel the bed move. And I think other people have had this experience as well. And then there's times when I saw a red light in the window. There's a bright red light, and all of a sudden it would disappear, and I'd wake up in the morning. And another time, oh my gosh, I felt them on the bed, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I felt them there, and I knew somebody was at my back, and I tried yelling and screaming, but I couldn't move. And I remember ending up on the floor. I must have really moved or tried to move around a lot, but ended up on the floor because I was close to the edge of the bed. And there were so many times that happened, 3 in particular that I remember, but there were other times as well. My memory started jogging when I started talking about it. But I remember it happening to my mother and father. My mother talking about getting up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom, and all of a sudden there'd be a red, kind of a reddish-orange light in the window, and she'd be still sitting there and the sun was coming up. And this was hours later. So I knew something was happening, but I never really got into it until I read a book years later about communion, and I think all of you have read that with the aliens, the Greys, and I thought, that's who it was, because I remember the short Greys around my bed, and they came to me one night, and they looked like my friends because they didn't want to scare me. So they came as my friends, but I knew they were little grays, and by then I'd already understood what was going on. So it was really intriguing, although, they've never, I didn't have the experiences like some people have where they talk to them, they go on their ships, they remember them. My daughter remembers being on the ship and being on a table, and so does my mother. So we've all been there, but I don't have any specific memories of that. I remember them being around my bed for sure, and in the room.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay?
Sure.
So you said that these little grays were around your bed, but that they looked like your friends.
Yes.
So can you explain more about what was happening at that point? Like how did they look like your friends, but yet at the same time, how did you know they were?
Well, the reason I knew Catherine is because years later, my girlfriend started channeling, and that's what they told me, is that they were the small grays. And I said, well, they look like my friends. And our guide said, yes, they come as that, and they will appear as something as to not frighten you because you were a child, and children are usually really frightened of these things that happen with them, from ETs. So they come, but they don't mean any harm. They really don't mean any harm. And I know they changed the DNA from our family, because everybody in our family has had different little experiences. So I know the DNA was changed, and I've read about that since, and the guides have also talked about that too, my guides. So it was really an interesting time for me. And as I said, when I was in social work and social services, I really was interested in the spirituality aspect of it because I knew things, I understood things, and I kept having these experiences, and I wanted to become more aware of what was happening. So my awareness really started expanding. And I read everything I could. I took some courses in healing modalities, and I took transpersonal hypnotherapy. And because I took transpersonal hypnotherapy, and I was working as a hypnotherapist for a short time, my girlfriend, I was in Canada by then. My girlfriend, my best friend in the States, in South Dakota, she was having such a hard time. She had lost everything, and I was probably in my maybe late 40s, 50s, early 50s, somewhere around there. And so I asked her to come up. I said, come up to Canada and I'll bring you up here. Come up here. I've been taking this hypnotherapy course, and I will see if I can help you, because I knew hypnotherapy and mind was something, you could touch other dimensions, you could go to other places. I knew that. I just knew that. So I wanted to help her and find out what was going on with her, why she was losing everything, and she was so depressed, and she had wanted to commit suicide, and she had it all planned. That was it. She was going to commit suicide. And so I said, well, come up here, please. So she did. She drove her little car and a garbage bag on the top, all the way to Canada. Northern BC is where I was living at the time. And I started working with her, and the very first time, she immediately went into an altered state, and a guide came through and started talking. And my mouth just dropped because I never expected that. And so we started talking to this guide, and then that was kind of short-lived because I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And I didn't know how to handle that at that time, So then we went back into it, and I said, well, where are you? Take a look at yourself. Go down to your feet. And she said, 2 toes. I have 2 toes. And I said, oh, okay. And my mouth dropped again. And then she went on about how she was this alien, and she tried to describe herself. And I said, well, what was your name? And she said, my vocal cords will not say it, but it was like Ichord, but my vocal cords she was saying this, my vocal cords, and this was her higher self, I presume, because it was her higher self that came through later too, couldn't pronounce the name. So, I brought her out of that again, and we just sat there and just smoking away, because we didn't understand what was happening at that time. And there was so much more information that came through. And then I worked with her again, and then she had some more guides, and she had my guide. And that started years of personal conversations with our guides, literally years. It was so awesome, the things that they said and how they explained things, and about the ETs, and all of that was so awesome. And unfortunately, I have boxes of audio tapes, but I didn't get very much written down or off of the tapes, because I don't type real fast, so I never learned how to type real good. So I didn't get a lot of that. I do have a couple of them here, but I won't go into that too much right now. But then she had to leave, and she went back to South Dakota, and we stayed in touch, of course. We're best friends. We're still best friends. It's been 40 years at least. We've been best friends. She's had so many things happen to her, and then she quit channeling because she was away from me, and she felt like she could do it with me, but she couldn't do it with anybody else. And I don't know why, because she can do it by herself easily, but she kind of, I don't know, she didn't want to do it, so she went to work. She spent a few years with a boyfriend, and then that broke up, and she just never channeled much after that. Every once in a while we'd get on the phone, and I'd have her do a channeling or something. It was amazing. It was awesome, but she hasn't done it now for a while. So, and she's gotten older and looking after her grandkids, and she hasn't got any great grandkids. I do, but she doesn't yet. So that kind of took her time away. But anyway, getting back to the spiritual stuff that started coming out, oh my God. I don't know where to begin. I was up north, and after I had quit the ministry, and I was with my second husband, and I would go for a walk. Like, we lived way out in the country, big ranch, and I'd go for a walk around the hills and around the he had 1,000 acres out there. So I'd go for a walk around there. Not 1,000 acres, I wouldn't walk that far, but I would feel this love. All of a sudden I'd be walking, and I'd all of a sudden feel this love, this intense, profound love. And I would just start weeping, and I'd wonder, is this somebody loving me, or am I loving somebody? What's happening? I couldn't understand it, and it wouldn't last very long. It would just be for a few seconds, sometimes only a minute, and then sometimes I'd be just sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden, whoof, I'd call them my love bombs, because that's what happened. It was just like all of a sudden love was dropped inside of me, and I just, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And I never found out where it was coming from at that time. And I'd be driving along the street, and it could be anywhere, anytime this would happen. It happened so many times. I'd be driving along, and all of a sudden, oh my God, there it would be again, and I'd feel so much love, and tears, always the tears would come, because it would be so profound. And I don't know how to explain it, because I have never, I've been in love, but I've never felt that depth of love. And one time I asked my guide, I said, I feel such deep love. There's no ending to it. It just seems to go so deep and so deep. And he says, there is no ending to love. It is everywhere. It is everything, and it is a part of you and everybody. You are just tapping into it. So I don't know how that happened, but there was a part of me that was tapping into that love. And Joseph, my guide, sometimes would say, when I put my hand on your heart, you can feel that love. And oh, thank you, Joseph. It was so beautiful. And, and then there's so many other things that happened to me. in the spiritual realm, when I was in South Dakota, when I was first going to school and all that stuff, and I would be sleeping, and all of a sudden I'd be awoken, and there'd be a couple of spirits there, and I'd say, "What are you doing here?" And they'd say, "Oh, we're just visiting. We just wanted to talk to you and visit with you." And I said, "Oh, wow, you woke me up." You know? And another time, there was a lady sitting on a chair beside me. She was in spirit form, and it was like she was sitting in this rocking chair, but I didn't have a rocking chair. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm looking for my husband." And I said, "Oh," and at that time I lived on, it was in South Dakota, and I lived in it was an old reserve, and it was a housing thing that they had built for the reserve, for the natives there, the Aboriginals. And I was working there at the same time. I was working in the office there. And I said, "Well, he's not here." And she said, "Well, I've been looking for him all over." And the lady was Aboriginal, but she had stayed on Earth, and it had been, I would say, a couple generations at least. She was on Earth, and she was talking to me about her husband, and she didn't call him her husband. It was, I can't remember what she called him. It was like a partner or something, and her mate or something. And he had died, and she was always looking for him, and she could never find him. And I felt so bad for her. I said, "Well, he's not here. He's over on the other side. You have to go to the other side." And she said, oh, how do I do that? I've been looking for him all this time. How do I do that? And I told her, just look for a light. Look for a light. There'll be something there for you. And so she did. And she disappeared. So she was gone. And I didn't realize I had that as well, So one time after, when I moved back to Canada, and I got Tish to come up to visit me again, because we kept going back and forth. And Tish was my girlfriend who was channeling. And she had visited me, and I had a Polaroid camera at the time. So I took a picture of her out on my balcony, and there was a tree behind her, and I took a picture of her, and I said, "Okay, well, let's go for supper and, go for something to eat, and then we'll come back, and I'll put the Polaroid on top of the cupboard here, and we'll see what it's like when we come back." So we went out for supper, and we had a good conversation and all of that. And then we came back, and we walked in the house, and I walked over to the Polaroid, and I picked it up, and I said, "Oh, that's really strange. Your picture of you is really nice, but there's 3 white lines moving towards you." And there were 3 white lines moving towards her. And she took it, and she looked at it, and she says, "Oh my God, those are spirits. They're coming for me. They're coming. They want something from me." And I said, "Oh my God." So we didn't know what to do with the picture then, So we decided what we were going to do is go into a little bit of a meditation with us. We work beautifully together. We do all kinds of things together. So we went into this little bit of meditation because we said, well, if those are spirits looking to be released, then we want to do something about it. So went into this meditation, and we held hands and all this and that. That was like 25 years ago, whatever. And all of a sudden, I got this feeling, this intense angst, this horrible feeling. I felt like I was one of the kids, or was taking on their feelings. It was so intense. I'm getting goosebumps now. I can feel the vibrations around me. It was so intense. I laid on the floor, and I sobbed, and I couldn't breathe, and I cried, and oh my God, and I just went on, and Tish kept saying, "It's okay, Jackie, it's okay, they're kids, they've died. I'm feeling everything they're dying from. Oh my God, they were put in a basement in an old house, 3 small children, and they were left to die and to starve, and it was horrible what they went through, and I felt all of it I felt, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything. Oh, finally I came out of it, and we were able to finally release them, go to the light. We brought this golden light in, and angels came in, and they finally took them up with them, and they left. And oh my God, that was the most, oh, it was like I was kicked in the stomach like 50,000 times. And that's not the only time that happened. But after that, we started releasing these spirits that needed to be released, that wanted to be released. And just a couple days after that, we decided to do it again. So we did it again. And what came forward was there was 3 of them. There was a mother and 2 children who had been in a wagon train. And I don't know, I can't remember how they were killed, but they were killed. And they were still there because everything was so chaotic at the time. I think they were attacked or something. And everything was so chaotic, and they were trying to still hold on to each other and still trying to save each other and all of that. And we kept telling them that they could leave now. They didn't have to stay here. They didn't have to be here. And again, we brought in some of their relatives and the angels again, and the golden light that we put in the corner of the room, this vortex of golden light. And they came in, and then they took them with them up, so they left. And then there was this fella that came in. He was a young guy, and he had been driving, and apparently he was killed in a car accident. And I don't know why, but I saw just like part of his face. And I said, well, you can leave now, you can leave. And he said, no, I don't want to. My girlfriend is still here. I want to be with my girlfriend. I want to be with my girlfriend. I don't want to leave her. She's crying. She's sad. And he didn't want to leave. So we talked to him about going over on the other side, and that he could be at peace and he could still be with her in so many ways. I said, you're not separated. Not by death. You're never, ever, ever separated by anything. And so we finally talked him to go over to the other side. And I don't know what happened after that, but there was a bunch of them that kept coming in, so we kept releasing these spirits. Those are the, excuse me, those were the 3 that I remember the most, but there were plenty of others.
Can I ask you a question about that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious because we've had so many experiences with these spirits that are kind of in between the realms, where they're not totally in the earth realm, but they're not all the way over.
Right.
So what has been your experience about them, and why they're in this area that is not?
Well, I do remember one now. He was an older fella. He was bald-haired, bald-headed guy, and he said he didn't want to go to the other side because he was going to go to hell, and he didn't want to go to hell. So it's the belief that they have. They're still hanging on to a belief in hell, or a belief that their partner needed them, or a belief that they had to find somebody else, or it was like unfinished business that they had. Right. They didn't quite complete what they needed to complete before they just left, and that happens a lot. I didn't realize how much it happened, but it happens a lot. People aren't ready to leave, and they're fighting, and they don't want to leave, and they don't want to leave their partner, they don't want to leave their children, they don't want to leave other people. If they leave, they're going to go to hell, whatever. But it's a belief in what's going to happen to them and what's going to happen to their loved ones. They're just not complete with that yet. So
just by you talking to them about the other side and how beautiful it is there, and
beautiful and peaceful and
relatives,
Yeah.
they're able to make sense of it in a different way, and then they allow
Yeah.
themselves to be brought.
And asking the angels to come in, and asking, because when the angels came in, they had to lower their vibrations a little bit to come in. And of course, spirits are not as low vibration as us in the third dimension, are still alive, but they were able to connect and feel that, and then finally see it. And we related to them by saying, yes, you have lots of family on the other side. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you with open arms. It's so peaceful. You don't have to be afraid of anything. You'll always be with your loved ones, whenever you want. So that's how, that's how we talk to them, and bringing in always this vortex of golden light first, and surrounding ourselves with light as well, so we could do this. Yeah. Oh God, there's so many stories. There was a time in
Wait, I think Brian had a question. Is that okay?
Oh, sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. Somebody had a question?
Yeah, Brian. Oh, can you unmute yourself, Brian?
Okay, got it.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So it would be like more like the level of attachment to the physical character would be, there'd be much more of a chance for you to get stuck in between dimensions. Like the more attached you are to your physical identity.
It's not so much the attachment. Like you can be with somebody, with a partner or a child, and you can really love them and be attached to them in so many ways. But when you're dying, you kind of go through this process of being able to give up that attachment, but still holding it in your heart, still loving. The love is what's really important. Still loving, but not being frantic and trying to find them or oh, I've lost them. Like sometimes when you die quickly, that can happen, and you can't get through it, So a lot of times it's in war or car accidents or sudden death.
Yeah, so I'm saying like more, that case. And then if you're more attached, meaning like to your character, and you haven't, depending on your level of consciousness, like I'm more in essence consciousness than object. So like I'm not attached to the world like most people would be, because they haven't gone through that process of transcendence. Right. So like that would have something to do with it, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, it's our beliefs on Earth as it is on the other side too. All of us, our beliefs is what creates our realities. And if we have attachments like we don't want to let go in that way, then we're going to hang on to that in spirit form as well. And that's what you call ghosts, of course. There's spirit and soul. And the soul and spirit usually leave in unison. They leave together, but sometimes the spirit gets stuck because it's the personality of the person, everything they've experienced, and it's usually absorbed by the soul. The learning part is absorbed by the soul because the soul expands, and usually they leave in unison, but sometimes they don't. Again, it depends upon the personality of that person and the beliefs that they have and what's going on at the time and what happened to them. So
thank you.
That's what I've gotten from it.
I'm pretty much on board with that.
Yeah.
Eric has a question.
Yeah, this is I kind of do. This is kind of something I've kind of gone into, spirit rescue, because I've become a near-death experiencer, and ever since I've come back, I'm bombarded with these. I'm a ghost magnet everywhere I go. In fact, my room right now. In fact, we're watching this thing. I'm getting touched all over the place. It's driving me nuts. They're spinning little webs on me. That's why I keep brushing my face, because they're bugging the heck out of me.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. But my thing is, see, I can't see that golden light per se. I can see a whizzing by or wisps, almost like my room is filled with bats. It's because they move so quickly and they dart around. Sometimes I can see part apparitions and things like that. And I have shared with it, was like, dude, I says, I have been on the other side. You want You want to go on. Believe me, you don't want to sit in that theater and watch a movie. It's so much better. Hanging out with me, I'm boring. You don't want to do that. But I feel like there's some that are attached because they are worried about health. I have talked to them about that. Or there may be, they're groping for that cigarette or that glass of whiskey, or they're attached to something on earth. But also where my main concern is, because I have gone into deliverance ministry and stuff, is ones that people that may not have had some type of relationship with God. They may have just been kind of secular, I guess would be the best way. They might be trapped by an evil spirit or like a demonic creature. That's where my concern is. And what I do, I'm going to want to get your take on this. What I do is, because I can't necessarily see everything, I feel sense things, but I can see some things, but I call in what I call paladins, the spiritual champions, the warring angels. I just call them paladins of light. It's my nickname for it, to come in and to take into custody any bad spirit and to release and take home and receive counseling and love in the families, the ones that may have been trapped here or held here. What is your take on that? I would love to absolutely hear what you have to say.
Well, my take on that is I think everybody's belief is true to them, true for them, and you create whatever it is that you believe in. But I've never seen any bad or demonic spirits, and I've been told that if you believe in them, you'll find them. Whatever you focus on, you find. Whatever you believe in is there for you. I mean, this universe is so full of so much. There are so many ETs, so many spirits, so much of anything you could ever dream of is there for you if that's what you want, and if that's what you believe. Again, it comes back to belief. And I've seen shows where there's been demonic spirits and evil spirits and so on and so forth, movies. And I had my granddaughter, she has anxiety and depression, and she sees demonic spirits every once in a while, and she gets scared. But it's her fears that create that, So that's my belief. Now, I'm not saying it's the same as anybody's, but I really believe it's your belief that creates your reality. Whatever that is, you bring to you. You put it out, you magnetize it, and you bring it to you, and if you believe in demonic spirits, that's fine. And if you believe you can get rid of them, then all you're doing is getting rid of or putting light into the darkness. You can do that. If that's what you believe in, do it. But light in anything lets it show up. So and helps it. It's love. And there's a lot more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to that as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, because it's real for you and it's real for others, and it's real for my granddaughter, and it's real for a lot of people, but it's not real for me. It isn't, and I don't know why that is, but it isn't. It just isn't, so I don't know what to say about that except for what I've said. That's just my beliefs. So, and another time I was like, and I also see, I have visions of people who have died, and how they died. Like, I was sitting in Kamloops one time, and that's in BC too. Like I said, I've lived everywhere. And my oldest daughter, it was her house, and I was there, and I was staying overnight, and I heard on the radio that this was in Kamloops, and in Regina, which is in Saskatchewan. I was born in England, but I was raised in Moose Jaw, which is right close to Regina in Saskatchewan in Canada. And I heard on the radio that this little girl was missing. She was maybe 4 or 5 years old. And so they had put out a bulletin that this little girl was missing, and I heard that had been a house party at that particular house that night, but she wasn't in bed. Her mother had put her to bed, but she wasn't there in the morning. So I just kind of went into a meditation, and I visualized her, and I visualized the party they had, and there was a lot of pretty drunk people there, and they were drugged and drunk and all of that. And the little girl was in bed, and there was two guys. One was a native guy and one was a white guy. And they decided they were going to take her. And it was early in the morning, and they went upstairs because she was upstairs in this house, and they took her. And they had this old car outside, and they put their hand over her mouth, and they took her downstairs and put her in the car, and they were going to sexually abuse her. And that's what they did. But one guy got carried away in the back seat, and he ended up killing her. And the guy in front, I could hear everything that they were saying. He said, "Oh, you stupid bastard, what did you do that for? And you were going to wait," And he was really angry at this guy. "Now we have to get rid of her body." So then they drove to the country, and somewhere by Regina there was it was like flat land, but there was a place where you could go down, and it was straight down. There was cliffs there. It was like a big park, and there was cliffs and stuff there. So they drove her way out in the country by these cliffs, and they took her body and they wrapped it in a plastic bag. And they went down this cliff, and there was a piece in the cliff that was open, like it had kind of broken apart. And they shoved her body in there. They just shoved it in there and shoved it in there. And then they climbed back up top, and they got in their car, and it was an old crappy car, and they were still fighting with each other and swearing at each other, and they drove away. And I saw it all. There's more to it than that, but I saw it all. It was horrible what I saw. So I called the RCMP, that's the police, and the next day, and I said, "Oh, I'd like to just say what I saw," So they called me back. There was one that called me back, and he said, "Yes, we believe you because we know what you have described, the old car and these two fellas. We've known of them." And I said, "Well, if you look by this one cliff, I don't know exactly where it is along there, but her body has been shoved in there." And they said they would do that. Never heard back from them. Don't know what happened. Never heard anything anymore. So I don't know what happened, but they were very interested in what I had to say. And, there was many other times that my girlfriend Tish, when we were together, we went down to Wyoming to work with a sheriff down there, and the chief of detectives actually in Wyoming, and then the sheriff down in another part of Wyoming, to look for lost bodies. And Tish talked to the chief of detectives, and she was in a trance state, like I would work with her, and she'd go in a trance state, and she saw everything of this teenager. It was her and her mom that lived together, and she had it out with her mom, and her mother was not very nice to her, and her father didn't live there, and she ran away, and she got picked up by a trucker, and she went to what is that town? Idaho. It was in Idaho. Anyway, she ended up there, and she had to give him sex, of course, to get there. So she got there, and she was into this little room with this other guy that was supposed to be looking after her, but he wasn't looking after her. He was kind of letting everybody else come in and have her, because he was getting money for it. I think that's why I was so good at social work. But anyway, it was not a very good situation, and she told the chief of detectives, "If you don't find her pretty soon, she's going to end up dead." And so he took everything down. He said, okay, we're going to get right on it. We'll get right on it. So we left. I came back to Canada. She went back to the South Dakota. And we never heard anything there either. So I don't know what happened there. And another time we were with the sheriff down in southern. Oh, okay, Catherine, you had a question?
Jackie, I don't mean to interrupt you. I know that
Sure.
Elizabeth had a question. She had her hand up before, so I wanted
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't see all of them, so go ahead. Yeah, that's good.
No, it's okay. I'd rather just listen to you. Keep going, and if we can kind of circle back to it later, I will. I'll ask.
Okay, I've got lots of stories. So, anyway, in South Dakota, or in Wyoming, we went from South Dakota to Wyoming. We drove down to the sheriff's department there, and we stayed with the sheriff overnight. He welcomed us into his home, and she had done a reading for him about this lady that was missing, and we knew nothing about the situation. She knew nothing about the situation, but she got that they were in this pickup. Well, she used to run along this country road all the time in southern Wyoming, and she was really a runner. She loved to jog and run, and they had a fight. Her and her husband had a fight, and they were always fighting, and he drove up behind her one time when she was running along the road, and he said, get in this truck, get in this truck. And she said, no, I'm not going to get in that truck. I'm going to keep on my run. So he said, I want to talk to you. So she opened the door, and finally, he stopped, and she got in, and they were arguing inside, and he took off, and they were arguing, and she was going to jump out because she got scared, and he gave her a push, and she fell out, but they were already going pretty fast. And she killed herself. She hit her head, and somehow she broke her neck or something. And Tish saw all this. She saw everything. She knew the truck. She knew everything. She was right there. Because there is no time and space. You can be right there. And she was right there, and she could see everything and know exactly what was going on. It was like she was sitting right there. And so she told the sheriff all this, and that he had picked up her body and threw it in the back of the truck. And then he hurried home, and he got a rug or something. He wrapped her in something anyway, maybe it was a blanket. And he took her out, this was in the country, and he took her out to this place. There's a place in southern Wyoming where there's big, all of a sudden it drops, like sinkholes, and then there's big rocks on them. And he took her out to one of those places in the country, and he happened to be able to move a rock, and he pushed her body in one of those sinkholes and used the truck to push the rock on top. And so Tish told the sheriff all this, and he said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I know that it was her husband that killed her because he had been wanted before from beating on her and stuff like that, So he knew it. He knew the truck. He knew everything Tish described about both of them. And he knew where the body was, what she was talking about. We'd never seen it before, but he took us down there, and there was fields of this stuff, so we didn't know which one it was. And we looked, and the sheriff looked and looked with us, and we couldn't figure it out. And so he drove us back, and we went back to South Dakota at that time. And he said he was going to get a cadaver dog out there because he knew she was out there somewhere. So we never heard from him either. We don't know if he got the cadaver dog or what happened. We talked to the guides about it later. And the guides said that not every situation like that has to be resolved, because what happened was initially what was supposed to happen happened. Not the killing, but the emotions between the people that were involved and the families. Everything was planned. Everything is planned from the other side before we even come here. You'll learn this through this. You'll learn that through that. I'm going to be your nemesis. I'm going to be your enemy. I'm going to do this to you. And you'll learn how to love. You'll learn how to forgive. But this is how we grow our souls. And she did this with so many of them. We just picked somebody out of the paper, and then she'd go into this trance, and she had so many of them. She could describe the inside of the vehicle, or exactly where they were and what they were saying. But the thing about her that was really different from others that did this is that she was right there. Like, there's a difference between psychics that can read the energy around you or read the energy at that time, and those who can actually be there in that situation. There is a difference. And she was there in that situation, and all those situations. I've got lots of audio tapes of those too, and one famous one up here that was done, and another one down in the States is what? Okay.
Question. Yeah. So,
Sure.
It takes a really special kind of person, I think, to be able to do that type of work.
Mm-hmm. She is. She's amazing. She's not of this world.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, she's not. Well, we all have ET DNA and stuff in us. We're all 12-dimensional DNA, and we all have all that stuff. But she is not.
Yeah. Of
this earth. And she knows where she's going next too. Pardon?
What I was going to ask you about is, if you don't mind, I wanted to find out a little bit more about you and your experiences with the beings, and what you found out over time, and who they were, and how they've helped you in your life, and how your connection with them has helped you.
Okay. You mean the ETs, the Greys? Well, there was tall Greys and there was the shorter Greys, and there was mantoids as well. And the tall Greys and the mantoids were the main ones that were involved, but the smaller ones were the ones that actually did the work. From what I gathered from all of us, saying our stories, they were involved all my life, not in a way that they came to me and talked to me and took me on their ships, like I said before, but it was for soul growth. It was for spirituality. It's for awakening, because we're all awakening now. That's what they had in mind. The whole process is about awakening the humanity. And when I've had some of these experiences, really different experiences, like when I was living on the island in Vancouver Island, and I had 3 really amazing experiences in one day, and I think I talked about that one time, Catherine, in my last one. I don't know if you heard it or not, but I had 3 amazing experiences, and a tree grabbed me when I was holding onto a tree to walk down a path, and it wouldn't let me go, and I had all these visions of how all my life I've been through so many challenges that it was making me stronger, and I was like this Gary oak tree, that I hung on to. And there's so much more from that. And that night I was going through a real shift, and I laid in the bathtub and I started vocalizing. A lot of people can really get in tune with their feelings from past lives, this life, every life, in between lives, whatever. And I just started vocalizing, and the sounds that came out of me, and I cried and cried. All the horrible things that had happened to me in past lives just came pouring out. And it was yes, I did cry, and I expressed it so deeply, but I was relieved. Once I went to bed, I felt, finally at peace. And I remember rolling over on my side to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, at my window again was the red light, and all I remember is thinking, they're back. And all of a sudden I was paralyzed again. And this wasn't so long ago, it was maybe 7 years ago. And they came in and they went to the back of my head, I don't know what I've got back there, but they have the scanner that they scan, and it could be the pineal gland, because the pineal gland is in the middle of your head, and it bursts open when you start becoming very aware. And they could tell, I don't know what they were measuring, but they could tell that something was happening. They knew that I had been through that. They know everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a visit by them to know that they know. But anyway, they were scanning me, and I was really angry at the time. I said, "Oh, gee, get away from me, get away from me." And all I could move was my hips, from my hips down, and my legs, and I was kicking my legs, but I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't do anything else. So they finished the scan. All of a sudden, they were gone. And then I woke up and I thought, oh my God, here we go again. So I immediately went upstairs and called my friend, Tish, who is an alien, who is an ET, whatever, not alien, none of them are alien, who is an ET, and I talked to her about it, and she said, oh yeah, I know, they're just scanning you. I said, well, they've been scanning me for years, and that's what they've been doing. They've been coming to me for years, since I was a child, but then scanning me. They've done something to the DNA, to each one of us, each generation, and now she said they're just scanning. And I've felt them. When I've gone to bed at night in different places and different areas, I knew they were there. I could feel them there, and I knew they were scanning me, but not as profound as this last time, you know, but I knew they were there. They've been keeping track of me forever. I mean, I think it's been forever. This isn't the only life. So
Rick has a question for you.
sure.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in this time.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm always curious to know from an experiencer's point of view, because I have not, to my knowledge, had any contact with ETs, but I'm just always curious about the subject and anything spiritual. And so from a contactee point of view, what are these ETs in relation to us? Like, I know you said they're here to kind of like help us with our spiritual evolution, but I'm assuming they also have like lives of their own, you know, like their own communities. I know that some people who have had near-death experiences, they have said that they remember being ETs in past lives or future, you know, like, I know it all happens all at once, but like it, you know, at different points they were ETs themselves. Like some people I know have this notion that they're like that, like especially like the Greys, that they're us in the future, you know, like, so what is your take on all of that?
Well, I think we're all partly ET, all of them, and I think the Greys have changed DNA in all of us. I think we're all, there's no separation. There's no separation between us and them. There is no us and them. There's only we, us, you know. There's not just us and them. There's no separation. We've all been in other dimensions and other realities and other, you know, we've all been ETs. I was one that was a bird person or something in one of my lives. We've all been there. There's not one of you here, not one of you, that hasn't been touched by ET, either in your DNA or somehow within your, not just your physical structure, but your emotional, mental, spiritual structure. You are them. They are us. I know it's hard to define. It's hard to put in a box. It's hard to articulate how we're all together, but we are one. Everything, like, that's why some people, when you raise your vibration, you can go to the other side. You can go anywhere. You can become anything, because that's who you are. You are all of it. We are.
So then can I just ask, like, what, like, if you remember your life as the bird ET or whatever kind of other civilization, like, how, is that like, how is that the same as life on Earth, or how is it different from life on Earth? Like, I know that like we're at like the third density or whatever, you know, like in other ETs or in other densities from what I hear. I'm just trying to understand all of that. Like, how is it different or the same from what we're experiencing now?
We're on this third dimension in order to learn, in order to raise our awareness, in order to become more spiritual. We're already crossed the mark. We've already passed that. We are totally in a huge shift that's happening right now, because we are becoming all one. And the ETs, they're going to be here soon, and we're going to have to acknowledge them, because the 3D, the earth plane has been so protected for so long. And this was the collective, this is all of us, decided to do this in order to become, in order to grow and become who we really are. That's God in form, source, whatever you want to say about that. We are all of it. We are aspects of all of it. And they, on their physical or mental or emotional forms, some are just light. They're beings of light. Some are physical beings. Some are on ships. Some are not on ships. The one that I was on a different vibrational path, because everything is different vibrations. Everybody and everything is different for vibration. God, it's so hard to explain. Everything is energy, you know that. Most people do. And we're just in this physical form. We've come into this physical form in order to learn on Earth, in order to expand, in order to grow our souls, in order to grow the Earth. The Earth is real. The Earth is alive. The Earth is energy. The Earth is expanding as well. You know, the Earth has a soul. Gaia. The Earth is alive. Everything that you could see, I am that. I am that. I am that. Everything you can see, I am that. I am. I am that. So it's really difficult to explain that because there is no separation, and we're getting there. We are slowly getting there. This is the biggest time in humanity's history right now. We are this is amazing. We've all agreed to this. We've all produced this. All of us have, whether we remember it or not. We all had something to do with what's happening right now. And every single thought, word, and deed adds to the expression of all. Every expression adds to everybody, the whole collective. It grows it. It grows the soul of all of it, the higher self, the whole soul of all of it. I don't know.
Sharon had a question.
Okay.
She wanted to say more, and then, I don't want to interrupt you. So,
Sharon?
Question, or did you?
Jackie? Okay. Yes, Jackie, I do have a question for you.
Sure.
I would like to know if you are aware of what it was that precipitated your emoting and your remembering all those past lives.
I don't know what it was. I think I was born with it. I don't know. Maybe the ETs and they're dealing with the DNA or the pineal when I was young. I think I was born into this. Like, even before that, I remember things happening. Like, for instance, I was a little bit of a brat when I was younger, but I was always kind and always considerate and always loving, well, mostly. But we were driving in a car, and there was a bunch of us teenagers and, drinking and driving and, all of this and that stuff. And I remember there was a girl walking down the street, and all of the guys and girls, like the car was full, and the guys said, "Oh, Jackie, go beat her up, go beat her up." And I said, "No, she's hurt." I could tell. just by her walking down the street. She was hurt. I wasn't going to go hurt her anymore. And here they were egging each other on. I'll go beat her up. She's done this and she's done that and she's this and she's that. And I said, no, I won't do that. And I knew, I didn't know the word for it, but I knew at the time that she'd been traumatized. So, and even as a little child, I knew these things. There are things that happened then too. So I don't know when it happened. I really don't. And I would be, all of a sudden I'd go back into time, I'd go into a past life. Automatically, it would just happen. And all of a sudden I'd be there and I'd be with everybody and everything. And I was that person right at that time. And talk about no separation. There was an instance where I went back. I was meditating or something. I love meditating. I was doing something like that. I don't even know if I was meditating, but anyway, all of a sudden, I went back and I was this little girl, and I was in a field. There was like grass, tall dead grass, and there was a little house over. It was on my left, a little house there. And I could see these soldiers coming up. I don't know if I was in the States because it was the Civil War. I don't know if they were blue or gray because one time was blue and another time was gray. But I think they were blue. And they came to this old house, this old wooden house. And I had mom and dad and 3 siblings. And I was a little girl playing with some sort of little doll or something. And I saw them go in there and take my mother and father and kill them and I was brother and sister. There wasn't 3, there was 3 of us, but there was a brother, kill my brother and sister. And I was so upset. I could feel it. I was this little girl, and I was maybe 3 years old, or 2. And I was sitting in this tall grass and just so afraid and so sad. And all of a sudden the soldier came up to me and he saw me, and he came up to me and he had a sword and he saw me and he looked me in the eye, and he had a chance to make a choice right then. Then he went, and I was gone. That wasn't the only time. There was another time where I was a mother of a child, and this child was my daughter in this life. She was also my daughter in that life. I might be talking too much or too loud or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, she was my daughter in that life, and we lived out in the country again, and we had a big barn, and I knew the soldiers were coming, and they were the gray coats, I guess, the gray coats. And I took my daughter and ran into the barn, and we went behind some straw to hide on them. And the head of the cavalry, whatever it was, came in, and he knew we were there. And he let his soldiers have at us. And I remember laying beside my daughter as we're being raped, and she was like 5. And she was killed, and the tears and the pain of that was so horrible and horrific. And I remember trying to hold on to her hand as she's screaming. I mean, I cried about this for years every time I remembered it. And they finally left, and I saw this little guy go around the corner of the barn and run and look in, and he had suspenders on and these pants, the suspenders. That was my girlfriend Tish. She had been with me in many lives. And anyway, I took my daughter and I pulled her dress down and all of that, and sat beside the barn in the hay and all of that. I knew I was never the same after that, holding my daughter. I knew I was never, ever the same. Both those times, who was the head that did this? My second husband. So talk about being connected. We're all connected in so many ways. I found out it was my second husband. I mean, I was in the States at the time. I had no idea who the hell he was or where he was. You know, I left and went back to Canada and met this guy, and he had this big ranch, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, and I worked at social services for a while, and we got married, but I knew there was a reason for it. And we went down to the States one time on holidays, and he had a picture taken of us of, you know, these things that you go into, and you put the hats on and the dresses on, and then you have these pictures taken. He was in a Calvary uniform, and it hit me. It was him. And, you know, I talked to my guide about that later. I couldn't stay there. I knew that if I stayed with him, I knew that I was going to die. If I stayed with him, I was going to die. And I had heart problems at the time. I knew I was going to die. So one time when he was gone, because I was kind of getting afraid of him, one time when he was gone, I pictured this white van in town. We lived way out in the country, you know, in northern BC on this ranch. Pictured this white van, and I was going to get this white van, pack up my stuff, and leave. That's exactly what I did. I went into town. I saw this van sitting beside the road, and this, I can't remember what it was, a garage or something. It was this white van, nothing on it, just a small white van. And I walked in, I said, will you rent this to me? And he said, oh, sure, you can use it. Yeah, sure. So I took it. I went back to the ranch. I packed up my stuff. I called my girlfriend, or not my girlfriend, my daughter in Richmond, BC, by Vancouver. And I packed up everything and drove down, went to BC. And he was devastated. He was devastated. It wasn't, and I knew when I left that he wouldn't live another 2 years. And he didn't. When I left, I had some heart problems. Like I said, I got them fixed. You know, some ablation, because I kept growing these pathways in the heart. Imagine that. I kept growing these extra pathways. So I had them ablated. So I was alive, and he got cancer, and I knew he was going to die. And he was so upset with me for leaving him, so upset. And he was so attached to my granddaughter, who was just an infant at the time, and he'd never been attached to kids or to anybody. I mean, he'd been married before. But my guides told me that he was alive during the time of Christ, and Jesus, not Christ. The Christ energy is there, but Jesus. And he was in the field, and he was taking the rocks out of the field and trying to plow the field and all of this and that, because he was a sharecropper, because that's what they call him, sharecropper. And he was trying to fix the field, you know, so he could grow crops and stuff. And Jesus and his disciples came along and saw him, and Jesus said, join us. And he said, oh no, I've got to work on this field. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. That's exactly the way he was with his ranch. I can't do this. I've got to clear this field. I've got to do that. He was still going through the same karmic cycle. And he had been married before, but he had never known love. And when we were married, he learned to love me, and he learned to love my granddaughter. And that's what killed him, basically. He died because he learned to love. And the guide said that was the greatest gift that I had ever given him. I left, I saved myself, and he learned to love. And he took that home with him. He took that to the other side. And they said he'll never have to come back and not love again. He'll know love next time when he comes back. So, I mean, we don't know why these things happen. We don't know why there's a war, because we're so separated. We're so stuck in this looking at it from this point of view. We could look at it from a higher point of view. There is purpose for everything. And I wanted to tell you about Tish too, when she was doing the channelings and seeing all these kids and their abductions and the cruelty that happened to them. The guides always said afterwards the purpose for it. There was a real purpose for it, for everything, for the parents, for the mother, for the father, for the child, for the one that did the abducting or the killing. There's a purpose for everything, a higher purpose. And we don't even know it. We can't fathom that. I'll tell you another experience. You want to hear some more? Another experience I had. I was sitting in the basement of a house that I was renting the basement rooms. You know, I was never had money, never. I was working, yeah, making good money for a short time, 12 years, but I had a daughter who was disabled. And I was a single parent for many, many years. Anyway, I was sitting in the basement of this house, and I was sitting on my computer. I was just typing away, and I was actually typing this fella that I'd met online and feeling, oh, maybe this is it, you know, feeling a little love struck there. And suddenly I looked over to my left. I just, all of a sudden, instantly looked to my left, and there I was. I was me looking at myself, standing there, looking at another vision. And this person that I was standing there watching this other vision was so full of love. I can't even explain the love that this person was, so full of love. And she was looking, observed, looking at this vision of just my oldest daughter and my grandsons, just kind of a vision of from the waist up, and there was a guy with a knife, and he was stabbing them. He was killing them. And all she could do was, oh, that is so beautiful. Oh, and the love was so profound as this me was watching this. And I could never understand why. I mean, I tell anybody that, and they just like, oh my God, you know, and I don't blame them. And this level, that's what we see. We see all the horribleness of everything. And my guide later said that I was imbued with, and then suddenly I was back, but I was imbued with this love for about 3 months. It was like I was a walking love, like just everything was rosy and love and everybody, and for about 3 months. And I asked my guides, well, what happened? They said, had you stayed like that, you would become what they call crazy in the insane asylums, because you wouldn't be able to eat, walk, talk, go to the bathroom, anything, because you would be so full of love that your physical body, a shell, you would be a shell of your physical body, and it would eventually die. But your soul, the love, would live on. That's what it is. So it showed me that no matter what you look at, no matter how horrible it how horrible it seems, it is from love. There is nothing that happens on earth that isn't from love, that isn't based on love. And you can get caught up in the TV, and I still watch TV. I watch the news because I want to know what's going on. I'm a normal human being here, in this dimension, even though we're in the fourth, because time and space is fourth. I think time is fourth. But and I had a dream about Donald Trump one night too.
Okay.
I don't know what anybody thinks about Donald Trump, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't like him. I thought he was horrible. narcissistic asshole, to be quite honest, in my human form. That's what I thought. And then I had this, well, that's when he first got in. Oh my God. And the dream that I had, it wasn't a sleep dream. It was a different one, because suddenly I saw him in this wheelchair, and he was bent over, and he was ill, and he had these open wounds all over him and on his feet and his ankles. He was so wounded. And I was looking after him, and I was with his foot, and I was cleaning his wounds and helping him and putting salve on his wounds, on his feet and his ankles. And then I got up, and there was a blanket on the back of his wheelchair, and he was like, and I picked up the blanket behind him, and I put it around his shoulders, and I felt such enormous love. The love was overwhelming. I felt so much love for him, because I knew, I mean, the story is a little longer than that, but I knew that he had been so wounded. He had to be so wounded. He came in to play his part. We're all playing our part. He had to stir the pot in order to break up the systems, because the systems have to fall in order to be recreated. This is the new earth that we're going into. So be happy that everything has happened, regardless of what it looks like, And there's this chaos between dark and light now that's playing out. The light has already won, but the dark is hanging on. When the light comes in, as much as it has, it brings up all the ugliness that has been there for generations. Generations! This has been hidden. It's been going on for generations, but it's now there. We're seeing the truth of it now. We're seeing it expressed right in front of us. And we know the systems have to change. We know they have to be, you have to tear something down in order to build anew. And that's what's happening now. There is no good, no bad, no evil, no right, no wrong. It just is. We, you and I, all of us, have created this, have said okay to this as a collective. We have done that. We, all of us, whether you remember it or not.
Jackie,
So,
I wanted to see if maybe now we can pause for a moment and
sure,
see if anybody has any questions or
sure. I don't even know what time it is.
comments or anything they want to say, because there's been so many
Oh, so much more.
so many things that you've talked about, and just really gave us a lot to consider, a lot to, a lot of things might have popped up in people's minds. So I'm going to go with Debbie. Debbie, can you unmute, Deb?
Yeah. And it's just amazing hearing you talk, and everything you express. I understand all of that. And I just wanted to say too, with the change that's coming, especially for women, we finally are starting to get our power back. It's been taken away so long.
Yes.
Finally. And thank you, Jackie. Your stories are amazing. Oh, God bless you. Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I haven't told them before. This is the first time I've actually talked about some of these, except for, little friendship groups here and there or whatever, but not like this.
Love hearing stuff like that. It just makes my truth so much stronger that, yeah.
You can feel it, can't you?
Yeah.
You can feel it, that there's so much more than what you can see, feel, or touch. So much more happening. And yes, the feminine is definitely rising.
Yes.
Now we have Elizabeth.
Hey, Jackie, yeah, you've obviously been through, like, you've been through the ropes, like, your stuff. So, like, first on, you were talking about the love bombs, and I've experienced that. Like one time I was like driving on the road and I felt like this outpouring of love. I'm tearing down, and I'm driving. I almost had to pull off the road because it was so overwhelming. And I know last week Sean and Catherine and a couple other people were trying to like tell me like own your mediumship, like you're experiencing things and you just don't want to call it that, and so like I think you mentioning that was like serendipitous for me to hear that tonight, so thank you. So one thing I wanted to ask you, well, two things. First of all was you mentioned the little grays, the tall grays, and the mantoids, and I don't know what mantoids are like, what they act like, what they look like what kind of experiences you've had with them. I'm kind of interested in that. Okay. And then I'm also interested in finding out if your family, like since your whole like multi-generations of your family have had experiences, like do you guys like, have you always just talked about that stuff openly, or is it kind of just like a family secret kind of thing?
Family secret kind of thing. Yes, it was my mother that finally opened up about her situations after I grew older and read the that book. I can't remember the name of it now, but she's the one that started talking about it, and she remembers the mantoid being there when she's laying there, and the tall grays and a mantoid. Now, I didn't see a mantoid. I can't say a lot about them because I really didn't delve into it that much as well. Like a lot of people will read the books and try and understand them. And I never did that. I read that one book, Communion, and I read different little pieces here and there, but I already knew. It was like a knowing, like I've always had this knowing and this understanding that they were part of us and we were part of them, that there is no separation between any of us. So I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I can't give you any information about them because I don't know. I just know that we're all together.
They're part of your lineage, I think, right? Would it be
I think they're part of all of us, all of our lineage. We have a tendency of denying ourselves and saying, oh, look at this person over here and they've experienced this and they've experienced that, and oh, look at that person over there. You have too. You just haven't remembered it yet. But like you were talking about, Elizabeth, those love bombs, that's happening to quite a few people because we're really raising our vibrations now. I mean, they're really raising now. So more and more people will be remembering these things. But there are people that came as teachers. I wrote something down, and I just want to quickly share it with you. It's just one sentence, if I can find it. I read this from a guy and a book that he had written, but I just read this comment that he made. I didn't come to teach you. I came to love you. Love will teach you. And I thought that was so perfect because, we're so into gurus and teachers and everything, and those are wonderful to start opening us up. But we need to recognize that that is inside of us as well. We're part of those gurus and those teachers. We have all of that within us. They have just awakened a little bit more, a little bit earlier, and made the choice to come to Earth to teach us. That's all. But we're no different from them. You can't separate yourself from anybody. Love is the answer for everything. And even if you have a wounded part of yourself that's sore or hurting or whatever it is, put love into it. You remember the Ho'oponopono, whatever it is thing? I love you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. Put love into it because every pain we have is an expression that we have created ourselves to learn from because we've had these feelings tucked down inside of us for so long. and they're starting to come out. And sometimes they express themselves in pain and soreness and illness. And some people came here to be really ill, to show others compassion. Like my daughter, she's got 3 very rare disorders, and she's in terrible shape. And I look after her as much as I can. But she came here and she knows about this stuff as well. I didn't teach her that. She just already knew it. She was one of the ones she remembers them taking her onto a gurney and onto a spaceship as well, But she knows about compassion, and she would give anything to anybody. We are in service to humanity, each one of us, through ourselves. It's through loving ourselves, being kind to ourselves, giving to ourselves. And that is not giving ourselves away to anybody. It's recognizing who we truly are, the love that we are. Okay.
I wanted to say one thing too to that, Jackie. I want to add something. That love is the highest vibration of the universe.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And that's why the light will always smother the dark.
Yes, it will. But remember that you can't heal anybody that doesn't want to be healed.
Right.
They have to do it themselves. You can open the door for them, but then they have to do it.
Definitely.
So, anybody have any
Anybody
questions
else?
or comments or anything?
I just wanted to say nothing is ever wrong. Anything but love is a projection of the conditioned mind.
Absolutely. Right on. Right on, Brian.
Thank you.
So true. We're all
Loved hearing
conditioned.
you. Amazing words of wisdom tonight. Incredible. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
This was awesome. What an awesome talk. And, I'm just reading the chat here. So I did want to, as we're getting, we can still, if anyone has any questions, we can still go on. And if Jackie, if you wanted to share any parting words, if nobody has any questions.
Well, if anybody's interested in quantum physics, that's, some of that is really readable, the stuff that's spiritual as well as quantum, and putting them together, because the science and the quantum physics is really coming together in spirituality as well. And it's showing that there is no separation between us. Like you can have atoms and split the atoms in 2 parts of the earth, and they both recognize each other, and when something happens to one, the same thing happens to the other. And that's the same with us. We're like those atoms. What happens here happens there. And that's what the ETs and all of them are for too. They want us to raise this, because as we raise, they raise as well. We raise everything. We have chosen to do this, to raise everything. So, we're here on purpose. We're not here because we're just here to sit around and mope and grope and all of that stuff, And it doesn't matter, as long as you have love in your heart. If you want to lay around forever, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong. There's no, you have to do this, you have to do that. We are in service to humanity, whether we realize it or not, by what we do, think, and say. And that doesn't mean to say that all these spiritual people, spiritual ego is big as well. Because a lot of spiritual people, I can heal this and I can heal that, and I can just do this and it will come to fruition, and I'll have this and I'll have that, and and that's wonderful if they can do that. But it's not all about that and what I can have. It's what I can be for myself and the world. Because everything that you can be, the love that you are, can be expressed everywhere. And that doesn't mean, like I said before, giving up yourself. Oh, this person is really mean to me, but I'll forgive them and I'll be kind to them. Leave the damn people, you know? I mean, you don't deserve that. You are love. You are God. You are source. You don't deserve somebody whacking on you. Leave them. You know, these people in Iran, the women that are standing up for themselves, my God, they have chosen to be here to do that at this particular time. And it's going to go on and on. But boy, is there something waiting for us. Mm-hmm. There is a lot waiting for us. And it's going to be beautiful. May not be for a while. But the ETs will be here, and we have to acknowledge them and accept them for whatever they look like. Because looks don't matter at all. They're all part of us. We're all part of each other. It's acknowledging them and accepting them as we accept ourselves. What you do for you, you do for everyone. So start with yourself.
Is it that we need to acknowledge them, or our governments need to acknowledge them?
Well, when we raise our vibrations and we acknowledge ourselves and love ourselves and come from love, we acknowledge them as well. And the more of us are doing this, there's tons of us, there's thousands and thousands of us that are doing this. We raise the vibration. They won't come here until we raise our vibration enough to accept them. Mm-hmm. They know that we would kill them, you know.
Do you know when this is happening? Do you know when? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
They said they won't give a time because we are creating that ourselves. We were in charge of that, but years ago they said it'd be around 2032, 2035.
Okay.
The ETs would be here.
Okay.
Now, it might be sooner than that, a lot sooner. It might be later. It depends upon us and how we raise our vibrations. But the whole thing is loving yourself, and you raise the vibrations for everyone. We're mirrors. We're mirrors. What we give to ourselves, we give to everyone. And that's what they said once, too, when our guide said, my guide, Joseph, he said, when you love yourself, that naturally builds within you, and that naturally flows outside of you, and it touches everyone. Everyone is touched by love. That's the greatest gift you can give yourself and anyone else. Oh, sorry. That's humanity.
I just wanted to say, you know, I've had a lot of experiences myself with different beings, and the ones that I connect with are when you describe that love that you feel, that love bombing, and like that, just like that, the tears coming, and you just, the way you describe that, that's how I have felt in their presence, like when they've connected with me. It's like this love that just, you can't even put into words, you know. And it's so great because you really can't be afraid of that. Like, who could be afraid of that kind of love, right? So when people, you know, there are people that think the beings are negative and they're here for bad, you know, the wrong reasons, or, you know, reasons that aren't of the light. And I just say to them, you can't, they say they're pretending, or they come in and they pretend to be, you know, something good. And I said, you can't fake that kind of love. There's no way.
Well, you can't.
More than anything you could ever even imagine. So I don't buy that at all. But when you talk about that love, that feeling, that expanded awareness, and that oneness, that connection, that's how they come to us, you know, they love us, and they're part of us. They're part of our higher consciousness and our.
There are some negative ones, actually. When my girlfriend channeled and she went to the other side, and she said there's so many species, they said it would take many lifetimes to cover them all, because she wanted to cover them. But they said that there are some that are not very nice, and they would love to see humanity dead. really. They would like to see them wiped out, but they're not allowed to come to Earth. But occasionally they have slipped through, but not anymore. It hasn't been for a number of years now. But yeah, occasionally they have slipped through. So there is, I mean, there has to be balance in all things. There's good, bad, right, wrong. There is no good, bad, right, or wrong, is what I'm saying. But if you can reach the middle part, the alignment with all that is, you balance that, and then you don't see any real bad or real good, because you know who you are. You're balanced. You're true to yourself. You're aligned with who you really are. And that alignment is what keeps you safe and honest and loving. So
focus on grows, so when we're focused on the negative and the all of that stuff, that's what's going to grow in our life, like you were saying earlier.
Exactly, what we focus on, we create more of it. But at the same time, they've also said, when you're challenged, and the more stronger you get and overcome your challenges, the more negativity, dark will be in your life, because you've raised the vibrations of yourself. And when you see the light, you also see darkness, and it keeps going like this, But the light is going to overtake the darkness, and it is now. All you have to do is put love in it. Love is the only thing that takes care of the negativity and the darkness. And it is taking care of it now. You can tell by some things that you see. It was really negative, but it's starting to shift and fall a little bit, So, and it's not anything that takes place in overnight or in a week or a month or even a year. Like 2012, everybody thought, oh my God, 2012, oh good, we're going into this wonderful this new world, and the age of Aquarius and all of that stuff. And everybody was so disappointed because they couldn't see anything happening. But it was happening, only on a different level that we can't see. And it continues to happen. And it will continue to happen for a while yet. And it may seem to get worse before it gets better. I don't know that. I really honestly don't know that. All I know is that eventually and soon, we're going to be in light. It's going to be pretty fantastic. Yeah. It's going to be pretty fantastic for all of us. That's what we're heading for. There's no stopping us now. None.
I feel it too.
Yeah. And the energy, we'll have different energy sources that won't kill the earth, The science, I read science once in a while, and I see all these things taking place, and I think, oh my gosh, that's awesome, because that's what we got told about. This is happening and that's happening, and they're not quite here yet, but the research on these things, like I do a lot of research because of my daughter, but some of the research I see, I think, oh my God, they're discovering this and discovering that and discovering that. Yes, it takes a while to get here with people, but it is quite amazing. We'll be able to live a long time if you choose. If you choose. Yeah, so there's so much coming. So much coming. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. Exciting times for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to get ready to wind down a little bit, and unless anybody has a burning desire to ask a question before we go.
Somebody just wrote something about a money trap. We've been in this money trap. Well, what our guides suggested to us a long time ago is that eventually we won't need money, because it'll be like a sharing society. It'll be based on need. If somebody has need, people will go there and help them. If this person has need, somebody will go there and help them. So it'll be a sharing society, not based on money, but everything, because we'll be coming into this oneness. everybody belongs. Everybody belongs. Everybody is loved. Everybody is cared for. And we care for everybody. We are cared for. Everybody is cared for. And that's what it's going to be. There won't be any financial, oh, you have to be rich, you have to make lots of money, you know. There won't be that. It might be a while before that happens. I don't know how long it's going to be. But I'll tell you, after the ETs get here and they really start bringing their technology, and, you know, technology is already here on Earth, but coming from everybody in every place at the same time is going to be spectacular. So,
Yeah.
bye, Yumi.
It'll be a whole new way of doing things, but it'll
Yes.
be the highest
Yes.
best good of everyone.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to work. People ask me sometimes, well, how is it going to work? I don't know how exactly it's going to work, but I know it's going to work because we'll have a different mindset.
Right.
Our minds are changing. They're more expansive now, and they're going to be continually expanding along with our soul. So we'll have a great mindset, you know, to discover all kinds of things that we can't even think of right now.
It would be like, you know, if somebody doesn't have a home, or, you know, people will just know, people that know how to build homes will just help them to get a home. And then those
Yeah,
people will do, you know, have skills that they'll help others with. So everyone will
exactly.
do one another.
And it's not even going to be like it is now. I mean, there's the 3D thing, you know, you can make homes, and that's going to be improved on as well. So, I mean, work is kind of like a bad word. And, you know, when you think of work, you think, oh, God, you know, but it's not going to be work anymore. It's going to be pleasure. It's going to be joy. It's going to be giving. It's going to be receiving. It's going to be loving. I can't tell you how much it's going to be cherished. You know, I just can't tell you how much. So we've all got really good stuff to look forward to, all of us.
I agree. I think that there's a common theme that's going on with people that I'm meeting lately anyway, that they really want to plug into their joy and what
Yes.
brings joy in their life, because whatever it is that brings us the most joy is really what it's kind of like our blueprint of what we came in with, and connected in with that part of our soul that, you know, brings us to life when we talk about it, right? Or when we're
Yeah.
meshed in it. So that's what we're here to bring to the world. It's what we're, you know, we're joyful about. And
Exactly.
they bring that out into the world, then it kind of gives others permission to then do that also. So I think it's cool going on.
There are so many people that are going through so many challenges now, so many intense challenges, and so many hardships, and you know, so many light workers have said, oh my God, I thought this was going to be over with a long time ago, and here we're going on and on and on. Well, find it within yourself. Find that joy. You know, start looking at things differently. When you see something like this, just change your perspective, just a hair. Just start looking at things just a little bit differently. And when you get a different perspective, you can start opening up and feeling that inside you, and you start aligning to that love. Become a pillar of light. I've heard that a lot of times, a pillar of light, and nothing will bother you. It doesn't matter how many challenges you have, because you know who you are. You know why you're here, you know. So that's where we're going.
So exciting. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. And it was so nice to have you here tonight as a speaker. And I always love when you're here with us in our groups, and to hear you speak tonight was really, it was just so fantastic. And I feel you when you talk about that love. It's like, you know.
I feel you too. And I want to hear you. I want to hear your experiences.
Oh yes, I'm getting myself prepared to start.
I hope so. I mean, we all have something to add. All of us, no matter what it is, we have something to add.
We all have something to share. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree. So, all right. So I wanted also, well, thank you. one more time, thank you, Jackie, so much for
Oh,
tonight.
you're very welcome. It's been an honor. This is my second time. So it's been an honor to blab all this in one spot when I haven't done that for years and years and years. So thank you. Thanks for giving me the time and the space for doing this.